In this next section, we talk about 10 keys to building powerful listening skills. First of all, to control external and internal distractions. The more important, more serious a conversation is, the more some measure of seclusion is called for. You wouldn't want to deal with an employee about a problem in their performance in a crowded hallway, for instance. And so setting the right stage and shows respect for the conversation or the message itself. Become actively involved. Realize that listening requires focus, it requires effort. And it doesn't just happen haphazardly, it happens out of effort. Separate facts from opinions. That's probably just a good idea when it comes to any type of critical thinking, critical reading, or in this case, critical listening. Identify important facts. Some may remember that in class I brought up the old adage when someone talks about how little things can pile up. One particular event can be, as we say, the straw that broke the camel's back. What that means is that it wasn't a single event, it was a whole collection of events that transpired maybe to cause the problem or whatever the catastrophe or the dilemma was. So it's, but I'd say probably in many cases, when you've got what seems to be a little thing that blows up, it's because there probably is a common theme among those among those problems. And so it isn't important to try to identify what the important foundational or underlying issues are. Avoid interrupting. And the next step, by the way, is number 6 says, ask clarifying questions. So I'd have to say that there's something of a balancing act that has to go on. If someone is certainly conveying an important message, then you don't want to interrupt unnecessarily. It can sound like, or depending on the nature of the message, it can sound like you're trying to be defensive or trying to interrupt and stop them from maybe sharing the message. But the fact is, you do need to be conscious that if you don't understand what they're saying, you have to ask earlier rather than later some kind of questions to make sure that you're properly understanding them. Paraphrasing is another way to increase understanding and also to show that you're connected, that you understand in your own terms, in your own words, what the message is. Capitalize on lag time. For instance, if there's a delay, the speaker stops for some reason to change slides or to move from one type of presentation to another. Look over the notes. See if there is something maybe you didn't understand. You could ask a question about, or at least to make a note about to follow up on later on. Take notes to ensure retention. There's just something really about, with your own hand, writing down notes that aids in your understanding and your retention of information. Taking those same notes, for instance, typing them through a keyboard into a word processor, does not, and studies show this over and over, does not provide the same sort of memory, retention, benefit that you get from actually, with your own hand, as I said, writing those notes down. Be aware of gender differences. It was Deborah Tannen who wrote a book a number of years ago titled "Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus," and she describes there the differences in the ways that men and women understand the world, how they communicate, for one. She even wrote another book later called "Talking 9 to 5," and it was really about how men and women interact in the workplace. There seems to be a trend these days to imagine that men and women really are basically the same, that biological differences are negligible. And of course we do share, there's a tremendous amount of overlap in the way that men and women look at the world and relate to one another. But still, we should be aware of the differences, respect those differences, even celebrate and enjoy those differences. And it's true not just, of course, of gender differences, but of course of ethnic differences and religious differences and those kind of things as well. There's a lot to learn and appreciate from each other. Communicating nonverbally. Nonverbal communication includes all unwritten and unspoken messages, whether we intend to convey those messages or not. And if words and nonverbal cues clash, the nonverbal cues will basically win the day. They will win out over the words. We've all had this situation, I'm sure, where somebody has said, it's not what she said or what he said, it's how he said it or how she said it. It has to do with those nonverbal things, and sometimes You can probably remember a conversation that you're in, and because you were face to face, you could see that the person disagreed with you or was confused by what you said or didn't understand it. And so these nonverbal cues are really important in communication. There are various forms of nonverbal communication. Eye contact is important. With regard to eye contact, of course, the role that eye contact plays and what to recommend really depends, let's say, on the culture, among other things. And so we want to be aware of those differences. And yet, overall, let's just note that establishing eye contact and maintaining that eye contact is, without staring someone down, is a common way to show attention and respect. A facial expression. We express warmth by attention, by smiling, by a pleasant look on our faces. And of course, if the facial expression includes a frown or a furrowed brow, that shows confusion, well, those things send their messages. Posture and gestures. In general, we want to stand erect, to be open, that is, open body. Don't cover up by crossing your arms or sit so that you are, small and hiding, maybe covering your vitals. You want to be open because it sends that message of self-confidence, and also it makes you more appealing to others. They want to share things with you and are willing to be more honest with you if they feel like you are open to their comments. Time. You don't want to be looking at your watch all the time, but you want to respect people's time, and that is we do that by being concise, among other things. We do that in meetings by starting meetings on time and finishing on time and arriving, of course, on time. Space, territory, appearance of business documents, personal appearance, these are other forms of nonverbal communication. Again, this is something that really has a lot of cultural, let's say, significance, and some cultures are more used to being in close quarters, and others of us need our space. But this is speaking about that, but also trying to keep a neat and uncluttered workspace. The message that sends about having your act together is something that you don't want to ignore. Also, depending on the way, for instance, that a meeting is set up, if you've got all the chairs facing toward the front, then you're essentially sending the message that says, I'm going to convey information as the leader of the group, or this is for all the participants to sit and listen. Whereas if you've got the chairs in a circle, that invites more interaction. Territory, our space. Some people have a favorite chair. You might have a favorite pew or place you sit at church or in chapel. We tend to be fairly territorial, but we have to be careful about that, especially when inviting other people in to our space to make ourselves available to them. Appearance of business documents. Neatness is critical. It speaks of our professionalism. It speaks of our competence. And so you want to be very careful. Anything you send out ideally is perfect. It doesn't have any, it looks good, it's correct, and of course all those things that we talk about: clear, complete, concise, correct, coherent. And then personal appearance. Certainly we can make too much of appearances, but we need to be aware that how we look on the outside is says a lot about how we will be understood and received by others. Showing professionalism when communicating. Establish and maintain eye contact. Use posture to show interest. Lean forward, for instance, rather than to lean back. Reduce or eliminate physical barriers. A number of faculty, for very good reason, have a desk facing the door as we come in. It creates a barrier of sorts between ourselves and others. Of course, we can see then when people do come to our door a bit easier. So just realize that those sorts of things, if you're going to have a meeting and where you want conversation to occur, then you probably need to move to a sitting area rather than to have a desk between you and the person that you're conversing with. Improve your decoding skills. In other words, try to be attentive to the messages people are sending. Once again, we all know of those people who seem to be oblivious to the various messages that that some, they just don't get the cues. When somebody's looking at their watch, they don't pick up on it. Oh, I guess you need to do something else. I'll come back later. To probe for more information, to show interest in others' ideas, and when you don't have all the information, ask for the additional information that you need in order to understand the points that they're making. Interpret nonverbal meanings in context. Realize that everything really that's said and done comes from somewhere and doesn't just fall out of the sky. So try to be sensitive to the context in which messages are conveyed. Associate with people from diverse cultures. Come to appreciate those differences and to better understand how others think and communicate so as to make as few mistakes as possible. Observe yourself on video. Boy, nobody likes to see or hear themselves, but that's really what we need in order to learn from and to improve our presentation. And of course, ask friends and family, those people that you trust and who know you well and really have your best interests at heart. Ask them for assistance in improving your professional presentation and communication. The next section is on gaining an etiquette edge. Use polite words. It was executive director of the Alabama Society of CPAs visited here at Faulkner just last semester and speaking to our students, and he said this one that obviously I thought was pretty important to remember. He said, I teach skill, I hire nice. I teach skill, I hire nice. In other words, he wants to find people who are easy to work with, who are conscientious, who care about doing a good job and polite with others. He said, I can teach a lot of the other things, but by the time somebody gets out of college, it's hard to teach nice. It's something for you guys to seriously think about. Express sincere appreciation and praise. Think about, develop an attitude of gratitude. Your life is going to be happier. People are going to want to be around you. They're going to want to work for you and have you work for them. If you are that kind of person that looks for the good and that is thankful for things that others do for them. Don't put people down. Don't be that kind of person who is known for always having something critical or disrespectful or harmful to say about others. Respect coworkers' space. Don't go around someone's desk and stand behind them while they're working unless you are really invited to do that. Don't just barge into someone's office if they're on the phone or they look like they're doing something. Wait until they're free, or send them an email and ask for an appointment. Rise above others' rudeness. Don't return evil for evil, but see how you can in fact try to turn someone's day around. If you know somebody's having a hard day, a bad day, see what you can do to try to turn that around for them. Be considerate when sharing space and equipment. There are some people that think when they find out that, we all have to, we're working together, we have to share this space here, everybody's got to give a little bit. There are some people that think that means others have to accommodate them, and they don't think that they have to accommodate others. So, as I say before, don't be that person. Don't be that person in the office who's known for hogging the equipment and being disrespectful or oblivious to the needs of others. Choose the high road in conflict. Try to be the peacemaker, the person who concedes when necessary. Disagree agreeably. I think I mentioned in class this notion in Christian circles. Some of us grew up with this notion of we want to hate the sin but love the sinner, and yet we realize how, especially in today's divided political scene, it seems like it's hard for people to disagree without disliking each other or even demonizing each other. But we need to strive to be able to disagree but still be congenial and to be friendly. That's the end of this session. I hope it's helpful to you, and wish you the very best in assimilating this information and digesting it.